So, those of you who follow me on Twitter and have been paying attention today will already know this story, but I want to tell this story at the beginning of the show anyway, so hopefully you won't mind me repeating it if you already know it. Hi, everybody, by the way. Hi to everybody in the live chat. So, every year around this time, on Good Friday, in fact, on this very day, the Boy Scouts, a local Boy Scout troop, sets up outside the front of my apartment building, and they sell Easter flowers. And usually it's not a problem because I'm just not aware of them because our apartment is further back and we're not close enough to the front of the building that we can hear anything that happens in the front of the building. But this year, for some reason, I don't know if because this child was assigned this duty or if he took it upon himself, but there was a kid out front who, for what seemed like most of the day since this morning, was selling the shit out of these Easter flowers by yelling, "Flowers for sale! Flowers for sale! Easter flowers!" as loud as his little lungs could make it, to, I think, every car that drove by, cars and people walking by, just pretty much every person he saw passed through his field of vision. He was yelling at them as loud as he could. So we had the windows open because the weather is beautiful the last couple of days around here. So I had to hear this kid. Well, I'm sitting here trying to write my next Trek Actually video, the Garrick video that goes up next week, right? So I'm trying to write that and concentrate, and I hear this kid screaming this all day. So I tweeted about it, and I said, does anybody know where I can get some of those darts that have the toxin that paralyzes people's vocal cords? I'm sure I've seen that in a TV show at some point, or like a James Bond movie or something, right? Where there's someone about to cry out for help, and then the bad guy just goes, or James Bond or somebody, and the dart hits him in the neck, and it doesn't kill them. It just, like they can't talk. That's what I was going for. That's what I wanted. I didn't want to do the kid any permanent harm. I figured it was something that would wear off in a few hours. That's all I was saying, And suddenly I'm the bad guy. Anyway, thank you all for joining me, as usual. To everybody in the live chat, just in case anybody needs a reminder, if you have a question for me and you're in the live chat right now, hold on to it until I get through the questions from Patreon patrons, and then I will turn my full attention to the live chat, and you can ask me anything you want to ask me about anything. And also, if you were planning on being generous and giving me a super chat, which I don't demand, but I certainly appreciate if anybody wants to, maybe hold on to those until I get through the patron questions, too, because I like to acknowledge the super chats. And if I am answering patron questions, I'm not looking at the live chat and I might miss it, and I would hate for that to happen. It's happened before. So, all right, let's answer some questions that were submitted by my wonderful Patreon patrons for this show ahead of time. We'll start with this question from Josa, who says, what long-term effects will the stacking of the judicial branch have for the U.S.? Even if the GOP will be voted out of power in 2020, 50-50 chance, I suppose the hundreds of judges they have elected will make for a lot of judges limiting what progressive ideas will come out of Congress or elsewhere for decades to come. Potentially, yes. That is one of the most harmful legacies of the Trump administration, even if it ends tomorrow. Like, even if Trump and Pence and everybody else just resigned tomorrow and they turned the whole thing over to Pelosi and we had a Democratic president at the snap of a finger, there would still, Trump has appointed quite a few judges, quite a few federal judges. He still has a lot to go. In fact, as I mentioned in the Facepalm 5 earlier this week, that's one of the reasons why they pulled the trigger on the nuclear option in the Senate and changed the rules to limit debate for most presidential nominees, because they want to push through approvals of as many of those Trump judges as they possibly can, so they can really pack the courts with as many conservative right-wing judges as they can, because those are lifetime appointments. Trump is tending to nominate relatively young people to those positions, so presumably they will hold those positions for a very long time. And yeah, that is going to really, really arrest progress in this country for a while. It's not going to completely stop it. It's not going to render progressive activism fruitless or futile, but it's going to create a lot more obstructions than would have been there otherwise. So yeah, that's a problem. That's one of the things I wish that the Democratic Party had done a better job of telling that story prior to the 2016 election. I'm not someone who necessarily thinks it's good to go back and constantly relitigate the election and second guess everything that was done. And I'm not necessarily one to say that Trump getting elected was all the Democrats' fault. But there are definitely a few things that they did not do that they should have done. And there were certainly stories they did not tell very well that they should have been telling a lot better and pushing a lot harder. And they did mention a time or two, and Hillary Clinton herself mentioned a time or two, mostly, during debates, that it was a very scary prospect to have Donald Trump being the guy for the next 4 to 8 years who was appointing Supreme Court justices. And that's 100% true, as we have seen. But he's not just in charge of appointing Supreme Court justices. He has the power to appoint all federal court judges in the appeals court, the district court, the federal circuit court. That is going to cause a lot more long-term damage, I think, than even the appointments to the Supreme Court, because most cases don't even make it to the Supreme Court. The federal judges at the lower levels have a lot more power to affect the everyday lives of people than the Supreme Court justices, and that is going to be a very, very harmful thing for a long time. And that was not a story that the Democratic Party told very well or very consistently during the last election, and that is a shame, because that is going to hurt for a while, unfortunately. Next question from John Gingras. Star Trek The Next Generation is getting a spin-off series in the Picard show set in the further future from where they left off. Which character or characters from DS9 would you be interested in seeing followed up with in a series set in the same time period as the Picard show? And what kind of show would interest you? I tried to answer this myself, and I found that I really want to follow up with all of them. Damn, that was a good show. It was, wasn't it? Deep Space Nine was my favorite Star Trek. That's one of the nice things about doing the Garrick video for the next Trek, actually, is that it's all Deep Space Nine stuff. I'm glad that Garrick won the poll for this month, because I love talking about Deep Space Nine whenever I can. So, and that's also one of the big hooks for me for the Deep Space Nine documentary, the What We Left Behind, which comes out. It has a brief theatrical run through Fathom Events next month, and then after that is when it gets released to Kickstarter backers like me. So I'll get to see it pretty soon, and within the next month or so, hopefully, or the next 2 months, something like that. And that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. As part of that doc is having some of the old Deep Space Nine writers get back together and break down stories for a hypothetical new season of Deep Space Nine. So you get to see what the writers think the characters would be up to and what the story should be. So that's really, really cool. I'm really looking forward to that. And as for which characters would I like to see revisited in the style of the Picard show, I mean, it would be great to see what Odo is doing, because they left Odo, sort of at a very interesting place where he returned to the Great Link, and they treated it like he might not ever come back. So it'd be cool to have Odo come back, or to see what Odo was doing, to see what the Founders are doing in the aftermath of the Dominion War. Have they changed their ways? Are they still pure evil? Worf, I would always love to see what Worf is up to. It's tough. I'm kind of with you there. All of the characters are so great. Nog, how is Nog's Starfleet career going? I would imagine he's captain by now, right? It's been 20 years. So I would imagine he's captain by now. How is Kira doing? Is Kira still stationed on Deep Space Nine? Is she still in the Bajoran militia? Did Bajor ever join the Federation? I mean, I know a lot of these questions have been sort of addressed in the novels, but I would love to see these characters and the actors who played those characters revisited in that way. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you are. It's hard to pick just one. Next question from Nick Peterson. Steve, what is your take on the new policy announced by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee to blacklist consulting firms and vendors that work with primary challengers attempting to defeat sitting members of the Democratic Party? Then there's a link to the New York Times story on the subject. To my observation, this isn't really a big surprise, as this is simply formalizing what many non-centrists believe has been the admittedly unwritten status quo. I am heavily involved at the county and district level in my state and can affirm Representative Ayanna Pressley's take on Twitter, which stated, quote, "So let me be clear, I believe fiercely in the potential of our party, but we cannot credibly lay claim to prioritizing diversity and inclusion when institutions like the DCCC implement policies that threaten to silence new voices and historically marginalized communities. And then there's also a link to Congresswoman Presley's status. Frankly, with all the time, effort, patience, and frankly, money I give to the Democratic Party, this inevitably feels like they want our votes, but should kindly shut the fuck up otherwise. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Nick Peterson. Thank you for the question, Nick. This is another area. It's nothing but gin. No, it's water. This is another area where I have some frustration with the Democratic Party. I think that's a terrible policy. I think the idea of the party cutting off support for those who primary incumbents is a terrible idea. I think the high incumbency rate of Congress for both parties is a problem. It would be fine if that represented the genuine will of the people, but as we have seen in many ways, officially and unofficially, the re-election system in this country is geared to give it's geared against constituents to give incumbents an advantage over challengers. And that's probably the main reason why there is such a high incumbency rate. People always ask, well, if Congress always has such low approval ratings, why does it have such an incredibly high incumbency rate? And the answer is because the deck is stacked in favor of those who are already in office. That's the reason. That's why you can have unpopular members of Congress continually be reelected over and over. Even people who are unpopular within their own party will continually be renominated and reelected. So something like what Ayanna Pressley is talking about, where it is completely valid, I think. Where if the party talks about wanting to be more inclusive and more diverse and wanting to find and highlight younger voices and marginalized voices and voices of people from underrepresented communities, which I think is all great and something we should absolutely be doing, they have to, as to borrow the pun that was used a couple of times in the question, put their money where their mouth is and not cut off support for challengers who are challenging incumbents in primary elections. It's terrible. It's terrible, and I do not support it. I think the idea of a primary election is for the party to choose their candidate, whoever that may be. Maybe it's the person who's already there. Maybe it's someone who is challenging. But that should be a fair contest. And then, now I'm totally on board with once the general election comes, I fully believe that if you are a Democrat or if you are someone who thinks that the Democratic Party is even a little bit preferable to the Republican Party, you should vote for the Democratic candidate, even if that person was not your choice in the primary. I believe that completely, but that's in the general election. In the primary, people should be allowed to vote for who they want, and candidates should be able to compete with each other at a level playing field. And that's just not the way it is, and that is a terrible shame. That is a terrible shame. And it's something that the Democratic Party should be taking steps to change, not to codify, Next question is from Tom McDonald. Hi, Tom. Americans are more divided than at any time I can remember in my 70 years, with the possible exceptions of the massive rifts in the body politic during the Civil Rights and Vietnam War periods. It seems to me that we all live in our own silos, perhaps even our own echo chambers, and have lots of trouble relating to those in other silos or echo chambers. If you agree with me about this, do you also agree with me that it would be a good idea to require 1 or 2 years of universal national service of everyone after high school? I'm not talking about only military service, but also human services, environmental projects, public infrastructure maintenance, etc. Do you think that working with others without regard to political, religious, or economic status would help bring us together? I think in certain respects it would. Yeah, this is an issue where I feel like you can trace a little bit of my evolution, because when I was a younger person, I was completely against anything like this. And I still am not a big supporter of it. Like, I still am a little troubled by anything that would be sort of forced government service, even if it's not strictly military, even if it is serving your community, helping build infrastructure, doing, community service type things. I'm still, if you're going to say, oh, but everybody has to do it, that there's something about that rubs me the wrong way. But I'm not as offended by it as I used to be. And I do see the potential benefits of it. And I do think it would be very good in instilling a sense of shared responsibility in people, in a sense of this all belongs to all of us. And we owe a responsibility to each other and to our larger community to do right by each other, to make this a better place, to build a better future. I think the potential benefits of all of that are substantial. I think maybe if we could figure out a way to do it where maybe we encourage people, maybe we offer people breaks on their college education, or we offer people some kind of benefit in their life that they can claim as a result of doing the service that they wouldn't get if they didn't do the service, to encourage young people to participate in some kind of national service. So it's not obligatory, it's not mandatory, but it's highly encouraged and it's beneficial to them as well as being beneficial to everybody. But yeah, I think I like the idea. I don't know. There's just something, I'm still not completely sold on saying everybody has to do it, legally. But if a lot more people did do it, and if we encouraged people to do it, I do think there would be a lot of benefits. Would it solve all our problems? Would it fix all of our political factionalism? No. But I think it might help. It certainly might. It certainly wouldn't do the up and coming generation any harm. So, yeah. Next question is from General Contact Unit Problem Child. In 2003, the American forces occupying Iraq refused to let local elections take place. One of the excuses given for this was the supposedly high probability that the Iraqis would elect Islamists. I'm skeptical of this excuse because the U.S. had other plausible motives to block democracy in Iraq. But even if it truly was the case that allowing elections to take place would have most likely led to a bunch of Islamists gaining power, would that have been sufficient justification for preventing the democratic process from taking place? Basically, I suppose I'm asking you what you think of the some societies just aren't ready for democracy argument. I find it to be a very patronizing argument. I'll put it that way. I find it to be, I think it might come from some kind of legitimate concern. In some cases, you might be able to say, well, would the people really be better off if Islamists that have a very fundamentalist authoritarian interpretation of Islam and concept of government were to take over? Would that really be the best for the people? That makes sense to me, but at the same time, if you're going to say democracy is the answer, I don't know. It seems a little inconsistent to say, well, except for them. No. Because I do think it's an incredibly patronizing point of view to say, well, democracy was great, but as long as you can handle it. And it does seem like that phrase is used most often in response to Middle Eastern societies, to Arab societies, to societies in countries that are predominantly of Muslim populations. There's the old saying, well, Arabs need a strong man. That's why there's so many dictators and so many kings and authoritarian governments in Middle Eastern countries. Well, those Middle Eastern people, they just need a strong man. They can't handle democracy. They can't make these kinds of decisions. I find that to be an incredibly patronizing, condescending, and racist point of view. That doesn't mean that all we have to do is say, hey, you have democracy now, and then you should just expect societies filled with people who have lived under authoritarianism for generations to just be able to wake up one morning and pick the best government possible. That's not going to happen either, as we have seen. But that doesn't mean that the answer is to deprive them of democracy. Democracy should not be ours to give or take away in the first place. It should belong to the people of the country. And if democracy is their right, as we say that it is indeed the right of every person on the planet, that's what we say, right? That's the whole first world versus second world thing, right? That's part of it. A lot of it was economics, but there was also government systems thrown in there. Democracy is the only way to have societies where the human spirit is able to flourish. Wasn't that the company line for forever? Wasn't that our side of the Cold War? Democracy is the way. Democracy is the birthright of all mankind, right? Well, then it's not ours to give or take away. It's not for us to say, well, not for those people right now. So I think the whole attitude is very, very imperialist and very condescending. And in general, I am not in favor of. I grudgingly acknowledge that there might be some practical concern that might make someone think, oh, I don't know, should we do this? Should we hold an election now? But like I keep saying, democracy should not. We should not view democracy as something for us to bestow or deprive people of. Next question is from Just Maddie. What do you think of the current state of YouTube and the alt-right? Recently, they've spoken out about trying to make their platform a safe place, but in the past, this has only really placed obstacles for new content creators to make it on the platform, with larger creators like PewDiePie coming out completely unscathed. Do you think there is a line that once crossed, YouTube will actually make positive changes to their platform, especially in regards to larger channels that platform hate? Warski, Rubin, etc.? I don't think there is a line in terms of conduct, because surely if there was a line in terms of the conduct of these channels, it has been crossed long, long ago. But I think there's a line that can be crossed that would compel YouTube to actually take serious action. And that line is if it ever starts to seriously threaten their profits. And unfortunately, that is the only line I can think of. Or the government stepping in and saying, you have to do something about this. But I don't foresee that happening either. But if YouTube's reputation as a platformer of hate and harassment and intolerance, which is well earned and deserved, ever started to cut into its bottom line, then they would change. Your breath would be taken away by how swift the changes would be then. If someone at YouTube decided that this was a threat to their business, that this was going to fuck with their money, the problem of abuse and harassment and hate speech on YouTube would probably not be totally solved, but would be substantially improved in probably a matter of days. And I say that because one of the things they would probably do is start doing what they should have done a long time ago and just ban the worst people. You can't solve the whole problem by banning people. And there will certainly be instances where it's a tough call as to whether a particular channel should be banned or not. But the worst offenders, that's not a tough call. The people who do nothing but promote intolerance and hate speech, racism, misogyny, the people who do nothing but shit on other creators and incite harassment and abuse against people, those aren't close calls. People who do that and have hundreds of thousands of subscribers should be gone. Should have been gone a long time ago. That's not a close call. That's something that YouTube could do at any time, and there would be an immediate, dramatic improvement in the problem. It certainly would not solve it, but it would be a dramatic improvement, and it would send a message to all of us that YouTube is taking this seriously, and that is a message that they have not ever convincingly sent. They've said that before. They've said, we're really looking into other ways to deal with this. They've said hate speech has no place on this platform, which is absurdly false. They might like to think that. They might want us to believe that. But the truth is, when push comes to shove, they side with the abusers and the harassers and the agents of intolerance. When their wallet tells them to, they don't side with people who are harassed or people who are victimized or people who are the objects of this intolerance and abuse. They don't. They go where the money is. So if they sent a message that they were willing to not go where the money is, but to go in the direction of actually making a safe and tolerant and inclusive community, then that would be a massive improvement. Just that shift of focus, just that shift of priority would be a massive improvement. But yeah, I don't think that's going to happen unless it fucks with their money or the government tells them they have to. Because in countries where the government does tell them they have to, they do. That's how I know that it wouldn't be that difficult to make things a lot better. I don't pretend that it would be as easy as just flipping a switch or inserting a line of code and boom, no more Nazis and harassment is gone. It wouldn't be nearly that simple, but it would be a massive improvement. Because they do these things in other countries where the law mandates that certain types of speech cannot be published. And they refuse to do it where they don't absolutely have to do it because they think it fucks with their money. And as long as that's the situation, they're not going to change. So that's what would have to change for that to happen. That's the line that would have to be crossed. Here's one from David Colby. A thought: for almost 10,000 years, humanity was actually fairly stable in terms of population, and our explosion of population wasn't a thing that had to happen. If agriculture hadn't overtaken tribal or herder civilizations, or if the unique historical pressures that created agricultural civilizations could stand up to herder cultures, specifically guns, which were the only ones that places like Russia or China could ever stop the nomads from the steppe, we could be looking at a world that is very like the world that was. Small populations, small kingdoms. Lots of stuff would be happening, and people would still be people, but it might not be the headlong technological rush we see today. But even if we did manage to have a sustainable tribal population living on our planet that could theoretically last for millions of years, that'd just mean that the first dinosaur killer to fall from the sky, or supervolcano, or gamma ray burst would wipe us out anyway. As it is, technical civilization has not one, but like 6 different ways to wipe out all life on the planet, though climate change, nuclear war, bioweapons, uncontrolled nanotechnology, if we make it that far, and maybe even doing some fuckery with physics that makes a black hole or something. But we also are more likely than ever to be able to save the planet from events that previously would have been acts of God. Right now, if we detected an asteroid heading our way and had enough time, we could nudge it out of the way, though it would take international cooperation on a massive scale to send the ship out there to adjust the course. But we also might not be able to sustain our civilization in the face of climate change. So, if given a choice, which would you prefer? A destruction by random chance befalling a relatively stable world, or destruction by human error befalling a chaotic but ever-growing and advancing world? God. So basically, which way would I like for humanity to die? I guess, and given those two options, I would prefer the dinosaur asteroid. I think maybe, see, part of if the question was which planet would you prefer to live on, I would probably say I would prefer to live on the planet that we have now with all of the problems, but also with all of the technology and the global communication and all of that stuff. But I fully realize by saying that I am demonstrating my privilege, because my life is pretty good. So of course I would choose to still have the life that I have now and not take my chances on whatever life I might have in a hunter-gatherer civilization. And that's a very easy and selfish thing for me to say. So that's an easier question, but also reveals some sort of moral ambiguity, perhaps you could say moral failings on my part. But as far as the destruction, I mean, if it's a foregone conclusion that we're all going to die anyway, I suppose it would be better for us to just die from an asteroid where we don't see it coming, and we're all living in our small societies sustainably, happily, doing our little bits of farming here and there, doing our hunting and gathering in our nomadic societies, and we're all doing pretty well, and then the asteroid comes and we're all dead. I think that would probably be a preferable way to end human civilization than us being the authors of our own doom, So, and it's one of those, it's one of those difficult inevitabilities that we don't like to talk about. We don't like to talk about our own deaths as individuals, and we really don't like to talk about the death of our civilization, or beyond that, the death of our species, even though both of those things are just as inevitable as our deaths as individuals. But that's really depressing, because one of the ways we take solace in the face of our looming deaths as individuals is to tell ourselves, but the world will go on without us. Our children will take over for us, or the work that we have done will be left behind, and the society that we lived in and hopefully tried to make better and cherished will continue to go on even though we're gone. And those are comforting thoughts. But we don't like to acknowledge that those things won't go on forever either. That eventually there will be a point, probably a long time before the sun expands and burns the earth to a crisp, although that will happen eventually as well. But probably a long, long time before that, there will be a moment when there are no more human beings on the planet Earth. That's just inevitable. That's going to happen. And in some ways, that's even more upsetting to contemplate than the end of our individual lives, because that takes away that sense of continuity that gives us a little comfort in the face of our own mortality. So we don't like to think about that. And I don't like to think about that either. So, and I'm sorry for making you think about that. But I think in the face of that inevitability, if it had to come some way, and it had to come from one of those two options that I was presented with in the question, I guess I would prefer the dinosaur asteroid. Next question is from James Dodd. Steve, I've just watched the penultimate episode of Discovery Season 2 and am just about ready to shit myself with excitement about the season finale. By the time of your show, you'll have seen it. I won't have. Is it good? No spoilers. And by the way, I also want to note on screen, you can see I have Dr. Babylon placeholder. Dr. Babylon, I don't know if you're watching or if you're in the chat. I haven't seen you, but you left a comment on the call for questions post, but you just put the number 124. I didn't see an actual comment from you, so I put that there in case you edited it to ask your question before the show started, but I didn't see it, so I couldn't include it. But I just wanted to point that out since it's on screen. Anyway, to answer James's question, yeah, my God, the season finale of Discovery was fantastic. Yes, I don't want to say too much about it right now, because I am going to do a review video where I review the back half of the season and then give my opinion on the season as a whole, because I did a review of the first half of the season earlier, a couple months ago now. And next week will be the Garrick video, and then the week after that will be my second half of season 2 of Discovery review video, and I'll talk about it there. But overall, in general, I thought without spoilers, of course, I thought the finale of season 2 was excellent. I thought it was really, really good. It was really satisfying. It paid things off that they had set up all season in unexpected ways and really satisfying ways. It reminded me of things that were waiting to be paid off that I didn't even remember were still waiting to be paid off, and it paid them off beautifully. There were some wonderful moments for Burnham and for Spock and for Pike and for Saru and for Tilly and for Stamets and Culber and for Jet Reno, played by the wonderful Tig Notaro, and it was just a wonderful episode, and it had a really, really great classic Star Trek conclusion, and it sets things up for a really, really exciting third season for the show. So I was thrilled. I was just thrilled with it. And I hope by the time you get to see it, you'll really like it too. I have a really good friend of mine who is a fellow Star Trek fan who said that he thinks this second season of Discovery was the best single season of any Star Trek show ever. I'm not sure if I can quite go that far, but it was really, really damn good. I really, really liked it. And it pulled off the season and wrapped it up in a really, really exciting, satisfying way. So I thought it was terrific, and hopefully when you get to watch it, you'll think so too. Next question from David Sean. Steve, I would be interested in hearing your thoughts about how the mirror scenario played out. Do you think Mirror Universe Spock would have made use of the machine in the captain's quarters as the new captain? Or do you think he would have tried to maintain his preferred role as science officer while still working to make the logical changes he and the main universe's Kirk discussed? Well, I think, see, here's the thing. I know there is a canonical answer to this question because, or at least there's a canonical answer to the question in a very general way, because in the Deep Space Nine episodes where they visited the Mirror Universe, we got to see what the Mirror Universe was like in the 24th century. And it was very different than how it was when they visited it in the Mirror episode of the original series. And that version of Spock is mentioned, and his reforms are mentioned. And so we get to see what happens there. And if you haven't seen it, I want to be careful and not spoil that for you if you haven't seen those episodes, which it sounds like you haven't by the nature of your question. And I think it's also been addressed in various novels. And I think William Shatner in his totally bonkers Shatnerverse novels, which are sort of off in their own corner. Like the Star Trek novels are generally considered to be non-canonical in general, but Shatner's novels are so out in left field that they are even considered like non-canonical compared to the rest of the non-canonical novels, which is one of the things I like about him. Shatner just doesn't give a shit. And his ghostwriters really don't really give a shit. They're just like, whatever, who cares? We're doing whatever we want. And that's what makes them fun. But I'm pretty sure there was a Shatner Star Trek novel that referenced the mirror universe and referenced the mirror universe of Kirk eventually becoming the Emperor. And I'm pretty sure I'm remembering that right. So there have been different attempts to follow up, to write sequels to Mirror Mirror in different official capacities. So it's hard for me to divorce what I would say from that. I would say, well, that's what happened. You know, that's what they ended up doing. I think it's difficult to imagine that version of Spock that we see in the Mirror Universe using the Tantalus device to make people disappear. I think it was called the Tantalus device, right? Or using the machine, whatever it is. I might be confusing it with something else, but using the machine that Kirk has in his quarters to make people disappear. It's difficult to imagine the Mirror Universe Spock doing that, because even though he was Mirror Universe Spock, he was still depicted as having some kind of moral center, as having some degree of ethics. And it's hard to imagine him doing that, but maybe he could have used the threat of it to push for change or you know, to rise to power. Maybe that's what happened. And I think that's kind of what is implied happened in the Deep Space Nine episodes. But yeah, so something like that, you know. But it's tough for me. It's tough for me to say, because honestly, the Mirror Universe has never been one of the areas of Star Trek lore that I've been all that fascinated with. I think it's a fun place to visit every now and then, but it's like, I can't, if I were writing Star Trek, if my fairy godmother came and said, you get to write for Star Trek, Steve, I can't imagine I would ever write a Mirror Universe episode. It's just not something that I'm that interested in. But yeah, I think it's been dealt with in various other ways through TV episodes and novels. Next question is from Matthew Rick. Should Romulan ale be illegal? Well, that was the opinion of Worf at Commander Riker and Counselor Troy's wedding at the beginning of Star Trek Nemesis. And I believe then Geordi informs him that it is. And it's gone back and forth. Romulan ale is one of those things that might be, it's a relatively minor but still a fun example that you can point to show that Star Trek writers have never really given that much of a shit about continuity. Because depending on what show or movie it was and who was writing it, Romulan ale has bounced back and forth from legal to illegal, like 2 or 3 times at least over the course of Star Trek history. So should it be illegal? I mean, if we're trying to make the Romulans our allies, which I think was the case the last time we checked in on the Next Generation era stories, I would think we should not be outlawing their exports, right? We should not make it illegal. We should welcome the Romulan ale. We should be forming a trading partnership with the Romulans and sending their ale to all the far corners of the Federation. That's what I think. Next question is from Francois Lacombe. Which one of the many James Bond movie theme songs do you like the best, and which one do you like the least? Well, the one I like the best is Goldfinger. Not because it's a good song, because really I don't think any of the 007 theme songs are good songs. But I like Goldfinger because Shirley Bassey sings it, and it's not necessarily for the recording of the song that you hear in the movie, but I think about 5 or 6 years ago at the Oscars, they were celebrating I guess it was the 50th anniversary of the James Bond movies, 50th anniversary of the release of Dr. No. And because Goldfinger is the most famous James Bond movie and probably has the most famous theme song, they had Shirley Bassey, who was like in her 70s at the time, like her late 70s, I think. Shirley Bassey came out and sang Goldfinger live on the Oscars, and she sang the shit out of it. She sang the shit out of it like few songs have ever been sung. She just killed it, and it was amazing. And it was just this amazing force of talent and will. She takes this song that lyrically, like on the page, this is a nothing song. This song needs someone to sing the shit out of it. And she takes this song and makes it into something so special just by through the sheer force of her performance. It was remarkable. So I would say Goldfinger is my favorite. Least favorite? I don't know. Wasn't there one? The Madonna song. Didn't Madonna do the theme to Die Another Day? I remember thinking that was horrible, so I'll go with that one. Really, none of them are all that good. I say Goldfinger because of what I was just talking about, but really, I don't think any of the 007 theme songs are all that good. I mean, Live and Let Die is pretty good, but it's pretty good for a Wings song. You know what I mean? Like, it's a pretty good Wings song. It's not like a really, really great song on its own merit, to me, you know? Next question from Matthew Wyatt. Hello, Stephen. Thinking of Spot. I should say, hello, Stephen. That's more of a Spot voice. I'm a new supporter. You're the first person I have ever supported. I love all your amazing content, and I look forward to all of your videos and podcasts. What did you think of the new Star Wars trailer and some of its seeming rejection of Episode 8? Let the Past Die does not seem to be the theme of the end of the trailer. I know it's early. I just wanted your take. Well, first of all, thank you very much. It's very flattering that I'm the first person you've supported. That's great. I'm very happy to have you and have your support. I appreciate it. I like the trailer. I am not as nervous about it sort of writing over Episode 8 as some people are. I get the concern, and I understand there might be some people who are worried that maybe Disney or Lucasfilm feels like they need to make a course correction because there was a segment of the fan base that was unhappy with Episode 8. But I wonder if that's really even a realistic concern, because Episode 8 made a shit ton of money. It's not as if it was a bomb because the He-Man Woman Haters Club threw a temper tantrum over it, and I think The Last Jedi did very, very well, both critically and especially financially. So I really don't think there's any need on the part of the studio to say, we've got to fix this, we've got to make this right with the last movie. And also, I know from what he has said in multiple interviews that J.J. Abrams loved The Last Jedi. So I really don't see how he would take it as something he needs to do to fix something or to write over something from Episode 8 with his Episode 9. So I'm not really worried about it. And even if the movie does involve bringing back characters from the past, like Lando or like the Emperor, if he indeed comes back, even if that is part of the movie, that doesn't necessarily negate the theme of let the past die. Kill it if you have to, And plus, Abrams has said that one of the central concepts of this new movie is to be sort of a accumulation of all of the Star Wars movies so far. That it's sort of like it's been written and conceived as a payoff to all of the movies that came before, not just the current trilogy, but also the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. Like, he wants to sort of put a button on everything with this movie. So I would imagine there would be a lot of stuff that we've seen before in it, no matter what the story or the theme of the movie is. So I'm just really happy and curious to see it. And I'm not filled with dread about it. I mean, it might still turn out to be a terrible movie. Who knows? It might turn out to be a really bad movie. But as of right now, just having seen that one teaser trailer, I am not worried about it. I'm looking forward to it. Next question from Ben M. What other sci-fi series are your go-tos? Also, what are your favorite sci-fi books? This is a question that I'm going to disappoint you with this answer, because I don't have a lot of passionate sci-fi favorites outside of like really super mainstream stuff like Star Trek and Star Wars. I don't read that many sci-fi books. There aren't a lot of sci-fi series that I watch or have watched that I'm super attached to. So I don't really, after Star Trek, there's really nothing that jumps to mind as, oh, that's my second favorite. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I've sort of dabbled in that I've liked. I liked the rebooted Battlestar Galactica. I'll say I liked Firefly, but at the same time, I didn't watch past the first half of Firefly. Like I got Firefly for a Christmas gift or a birthday present. I got the box set one year, and I watched like the first 6 or 7 episodes maybe, and I thought it was good, but then I kind of stopped watching it, and I haven't gone back to it since. Like, I thought it was good, but it didn't grab me and never let go like Star Trek did. And same thing for Battlestar Galactica. I actually only ever watched the first season of that. And then I was like, oh, this is great. And then I just never went back to it because it just didn't grab me. I thought it was good, but I didn't feel like I have to watch all of this like I do with Star Trek. So really, I can't think of anything. So I'm sorry to give you a very boring, disappointing answer, but that's really all I can say. My heart belongs to Star Trek, I guess. Next question from John Brockman. How should we go about eliminating the apartheid state of Israel? Well, a good start, I guess, would be to stop supporting everything they do, to stop siding with them against the Palestinians every single time. That would be a good start. You know, if we're, because this is the problem, is that the United States has often taken this role of mediator. American presidents, American diplomats have tried to play the role of peacemaker and gone in there and said, okay, Palestinians, Israelites, let's get to a table and hash this out, and let's settle this and come to a solution that everybody can live with. And that's a nice idea, but that presumes... Do you hear the ambulance going by the way? It's there it goes. Yeah. There's the Doppler effect. Now it's going away. Too bad it's not that Boy Scout. I'm sorry. That was wrong. Maybe he just hurt. Maybe he just fell and he sprained his leg really bad. I'm not saying anything really bad happened to him. Anyway, no, I think the United States is. We are, my point with that before the ambulance went by was we are not actually in a neutral position. We insert ourselves into the situation and say, let us help you reach a solution, but we're obviously taking sides. We're obviously on Israel's side. So that's a difficult spot. It's difficult to reach a fair solution, an agreement that is acceptable to both sides when we're obviously on one side and we're trying to negotiate. So getting off of Israel's side and trying to actually get in the middle would be a great start if we wanted to take another try at negotiating a peace and ending the abuse, ending the violence, ending the abuse of the Palestinians at the hands of the Israeli government, ending all of that stuff that is going on that has been the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for generations. If we want to do something as the United States, a good start would be to stop being so obviously in the tank for Israel in every possible situation. Next question is from John Burnsy. Hey, Steve, they say Nixon went searching for monsters and became one himself. I think you are familiar with Jonathan Pye. He's a left-wing satirist who has been taking great delight in, well, everything political on both sides of the pond. Check out this video. I think he always makes some good points. And then there's a link to the video. I live in Canada, and we'll never go Third Reich fascist because the U.S. would squash us. But as Jonathan says, if you start to call out everyone for being fascist, you'll only push the moderates to the right. Don't get me wrong, I laugh over Trump. I know nothing about WikiLeaks' Q photo of Sergeant Schultz from Hogan's Heroes and his I know nothing. Fascism started in Italy thanks to a fat blowhard. I've always thought Trump was more Benito than Adolf, so name Trump's favorite stage play, and Hitler's. Start talking about Hitler coming to power via a vote and point to Trump, and you'll miss what's happened in other European countries. And ask yourself, Trump without checks and balances would be closer to Putin in Russia. No criticizing the state, or worse, Xi Jinping. How many times has he mentioned, I will be doing this, only to be told, actually, you can't do that, Mr. President? I'm always eternally optimistic and chuckling at any group of politicians that expect their collective actions will be perfect, but that's kind of what Jonathan's getting at. If the agenda is wrong, it can only cause more harm than good, and the least objective amongst us will never seem to notice they appear to be the most fundamentalistic. You understand this, right? I think so. The question kind of rambles a little, but I've been guilty of doing rambling a time or two myself, so I'm sympathetic. I'm not as paranoid or as worried about the whole if we call everybody fascists, it'll just turn moderates into fascists thing, because I really don't think that's true. At least not in large enough numbers to really be concerning. Like, I don't think people who are truly moderate in their politics and are not just playing at being moderate are at a really big risk to go full on fascist just because we call people who are acting fascists. Like, I don't think that's a real concern. I just don't see that. I do think it's important to be aware of ourselves, to be critical of ourselves. You mentioned in the question that, if the agenda is wrong, then it sort of spoils the whole enterprise. And I think that's right. I think we should not just be looking at the other side and saying, look at what they're doing. Aren't they awful? We should also be looking at ourselves and saying, what are we doing? Are we doing the right thing? Could we be doing this better? Are we doing things we shouldn't be doing? Are we not doing things we should be doing? I think that's all very, very important. We should be skeptical of ourselves more so than we are of other people. I think that's a big problem with politics. That's a big problem with the atheist skeptical community, that we're so used to being skeptical of people over there that we forgot how to be skeptical of ourselves and of each other in our own community. And that's one of the reasons why this community is such a fucking shit show. So I think that's all very important. But I also think it's important to call something by its name. And I think Trump is a fascist. I don't call everybody a fascist. I don't think George W. Bush was a fascist. I don't. I don't think Ronald Reagan was a fascist. I think Trump is a fascist. And I think the people who support him in his administration, who carry out these policies, are supporting fascist policies. That's what I think it is. I think that's the word for it. And I don't see any benefit in not calling it that when that's what it clearly is. I don't even think this is a tough call. Is he Mussolini? Is he Hitler? No. But that doesn't mean he's not a fascist, and it doesn't mean that the policies he has either carried out already or has wanted to carry out, and as you point out in your question, has been stopped from doing because people in his administration said, you can't do that, it's illegal. That sounds awfully fascist to me. If the head of state is saying, I want to do this, and people who work for him have to say, you can't do that, that's against the law, and then his response reportedly is to throw a fit about it and to get pissed off because he wasn't allowed to do the fucking horrible thing that he wanted to do because it was so over the line. Even the people who he hired to help him do it said, no, you can't do it. That sounds awfully fascist to me. That sounds awfully authoritarian to me. His rhetoric against the press, his rhetoric against immigrants, his Make America Great Again slogan, appealing to this long gone imaginary time of previous greatness that we need to return to. That's all classic elements of the fascist pitch. That's fascism. And I don't see why we should be tiptoeing around it. I feel like we should just say that that's what it is. And tell people, if you don't like that, you need to help us stop it. You need to help us get him the fuck out of there. Impeach him, beat him in the next election, whatever. Get him the fuck out of there as soon as possible. Anyway, that's my answer to that question. Next is from Joe McClory. Let's pretend somehow CBS noticed your Star Trek content and decided to let you be the head writer on another single character focused Trek show. Who would you pick? What might it be about? My idea, inspired by a Trek Actually episode, Captain Jellicoe, Temp Captain, where each episode he is assigned to a new starship as a short-term replacement and helps crews find problems they didn't know they had, leaving the ship better than he found it, like Super Nanny for Starfleet. God damn, that's a great idea. That is such a great idea. I don't know if I know Captain Jellicoe was the temporary captain in Next Generation for one of my favorite episodes, if not my favorite episode, but I don't know if I'd want Jellicoe to do that for a new show, but that idea of a captain coming in and being the fixer for troubled crews, oh, damn, that's a great idea. That's such a great idea. If I could focus, I don't know. I mean, Captain Worf sounded fun when Michael Dorn was remember a couple years ago on Twitter when Michael Dorn was really pushing for Captain Worf before they greenlit Discovery and before they sort of put the current version of the franchise into production. Michael Dorn was like, Captain Worf! And they didn't do it, but it sounded like it would have been a ton of fun to do Captain Worf with Michael Dorn. I would have loved to write for that show. I don't know. There's other examples I suppose you could do. You could pick any character from one of the old shows. Hey, Captain Riker, or Captain Nog. You could probably do something like that. I always thought it would be fun to do a Star Trek show. I don't have any idea about a specific premise or what the show would, what the direction of the show would be or anything. But I like the idea of doing a Star Trek series where it's set on a small enough ship that the regular cast members are the only members of the crew. So it's not like an Enterprise situation where you have the 5 or 6 people on the bridge as your main characters. And then there's also like 500 or 1,000 faceless red shirt nobodies who are filling the hallways and doing all, because it's like a massive ship and you just assume you have all these people on it. I would love to do a Star Trek show about a ship small enough that the main characters are really the only characters on it. That's an idea. I like a ship like maybe the size of the Defiant, or maybe even a little smaller, because I think the crew complement for the Defiant supposedly was around 50 people, which is a lot smaller than Voyager or any of the Enterprises, but still, you're not going to have 50 people in the opening credits. Something that's small enough that the main cast were the only people on the ship. That's what I would like to see in a Star Trek series. Which ironically sounds a lot like Firefly, which I just said a few minutes ago I did not even finish watching. Next question is from my favorite ever-changing username, which I think this time was so long it got cut off in mid-sentence. All I got of it was, TJ Kirk is wrong. Alex Jones cashed in his freedom of speech during, and I have no idea what the rest of that is. Who knows what Alex Jones was doing when he cashed in his freedom of speech. But anyway, my question is, have you ever been to the UK? And if not, why not? We have great wrestling food, including Marmite, jellied eels, beef Wellington, jacket potatoes with cheese, and beans on toast. And accent history with castles and standing stones, and you can visit the areas of London that led to women's rights, the end of slavery, and a standing alone for 3 years against the Nazis. Yeah, I have never been to the UK. I would love to go, and the main reason I haven't gone is the main reason why I haven't gone anywhere else that I haven't gone really that I've wanted to go is I just can't afford it. Just don't have the money to travel like that. I would love to visit the UK. Because of the internet, I have tons of people that I'm friends with in the UK that I would love to visit. That, I just don't get over there. I just don't have a chance to go. But I would love to visit. And I'm sure the food is great. I'm sure the wrestling is great. I know the wrestling is great. I've watched some of it. I'm sure the history is amazing. I would love all of that stuff. I'd be the most obnoxious American tourist in the history of the United Kingdom, and I would love every second of it. I just can't afford to go. It's really as simple as that. But thank you for saying that and for the implied invitation. Next question is from Larry Yellingman. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck lost its job to automation and had to find another job to support its very hairy wife and kids? Well, see, this is why we need to implement universal woodchuck income, so that the woodchucks don't have to worry about how much wood they're going to chuck if they lose their job and have to support their family. We need to have universal woodchuck income. You have wood for every woodchuck. How about that? I don't know. However, how much wood do you need to chuck to pay the bills? That the rhyme never made that clear. I don't know. I'm sorry I don't have a clear answer for you there, Larry. Here's one from John Jenkins. Do you have any thoughts on how it's become so obvious recently that many people don't really get the messages and metaphor behind popular sci-fi? For example, how could someone be a right-wing capitalist and not see that properties like Star Trek or Star Wars have had leftist messages encoded in them from the very beginning and aren't getting woke just because they suddenly noticed these themes in recent works? Do they simply black out every time Captain Picard appears on screen? I have asked this question myself so many times, and I really don't have an answer. I wish I had a better answer, but I have often asked myself, do these people even watch the show? And it's weird, because I get comments from people. The last time I asked it in a Trek Actually video, I said something very much like that. I said, do these guys even watch the show? And I got some people responded and were just really shitty, and some people gave thoughtful answers that I appreciated, but I still don't really get it. You know, and the best I can think of is they're either honestly oblivious to the politics. They just don't get it, which I find shocking when it comes to Star Trek, because Star Trek has never been subtle. They're just oblivious to it, or they notice it, but they willfully ignore it because there's other parts of the show that they like, because they like the action, or they like the technology, they like the set design, they like to see Klingons and Romulans and all that stuff. They just view it as like a silly sci-fi adventure show, which it is. But just as much as it is a silly sci-fi adventure show, it is also a show that does political and social commentary and has a very pointed message to send to people. And you're right. That message has always been progressive, has always been deliberately inclusive. And yeah, you have to either miss or ignore a lot of Star Trek and Star Wars as well, because as other people have pointed out, people say Star Wars isn't as political as Star Trek, and I think that's definitely true. But Star Wars has always been anti-fascist. Like the Empire were fascists, the Empire were space Nazis, the rebels were anti-fascists. Right? This is the way it is. So it's never been apolitical. But yeah, I feel like you just have to be you have to either choose to ignore it or just miss it completely, in order for that to happen. And obviously that's what happens in a lot of cases. I got comments on my Twilight Zone video that I did a few months ago from people who said, and I think they meant it, I think they were in earnest. They said, I just hope that the new Twilight Zone doesn't get all political and preachy. I liked the original Twilight Zone because it got political sometimes, but it was subtle. What show were these people watching? I love the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone is one of my favorite shows ever. The original Twilight Zone is like top 3 TV shows ever for me. I love it. I revere it. I love Rod Serling. I love the original Twilight Zone. It was about as subtle as a sledgehammer. I don't get how people can watch that show and say, well, at least it wasn't preachy. So I don't know. I see the super chat from Slarty Bartfars. Thank you very much for 10 pounds there. I appreciate it. The launch of the Steve Comes to the UK fund. Well, thank you. We're going to need a lot more than that, but I appreciate it. Okay, now that I'm done with the Patreon question, so I'm turning back to the live chat. So for the next half hour or so, I will just hang out with you folks in the live chat and answer any questions you have. So if you have a question for me in the live chat that you've been holding on to all this time, or you asked it earlier and I missed it because I wasn't paying attention to the chat, now is the time. Drop some questions in the chat and I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can for the next half hour or so. Adam Click says about the Lindsay Ellis video about the Empire and fascism. Yeah, that I agree. That's really good. And again, it's not even subtle. It's not even subtle. Humbilly, super chat. Thank you very much. It says data breaches have been pouring out of Equifax, etc. over the last decade or so, and YouTube has some bad apples, but Congress hauls up Zuckerberg. Yeah, I know. I mean, Facebook has some problems too, but I agree. Congress their attention does seem to be focused on some odd places from time to time. I agree with you on that. Alistair Shaw, why Michael? Why Michael? I mean, why Michael from Discovery? Because she's the lead character, I guess. Whatever the question is, whatever she did it because she's the lead character and she's who the show's supposed to be about. I'm just guessing on what your question is. K.A.E. Eberhardt, right-wing people who listen to classic rock ignore the messages there as well. You're absolutely right. Adam Rainstopper, if you were high on bath salts, whose face would you rather eat? Christy Winters, Cat Black, or mine? Do I have to eat any of your faces? I like you all. Christy's one of my best internet friends. I love Kat. You're pretty cool too, Adam. I wouldn't want to eat your face either. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Here's what I'll do. Okay, I'm going to answer Adam's question far more seriously than it deserves. And also, I'm going to do it with a certain amount of cowardice. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to create a random number generator, okay? And just so you don't think I'm cheating, I will put it on screen. Okay? No, that's the wrong one. That's the live chat. Work with me here. Let me put the live chat on here, by the way. Work with me here. XSplit. Let me see if I can fix this. I want to show you the window of, there we go. Okay, this is the random number generator on Google. Christy will, and I've selected it, as you can see, to choose a number between 1 and 3. Christy will be 1. Kat will be 2. Adam, you will be 3. Whatever the number is, that is whose face I will eat when I am high on bath salts. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to generate the random number now. 1. So Christy. Sorry, Christy. If I'm high on bath salts, the face I would like to eat would be Christy Winters. It's not my call, Christy. Adam asked the question, and I turned the decision over to Google because because I cannot handle that responsibility. But yes, so there you go. I would eat Christy's face on bath salts if it came to that. Google and its random number generator has spoken. Now let's look at all the questions I've missed because I was doing that horse shit. Trance, have you ever thought about writing your own Star Trek series and pitching the idea? Oh, that's adorable. Not seriously, no. Adam, quick take on the Mueller report. I mean, it sounds a lot like what we expected, to be honest, doesn't it? It sounds like there are quite a few things in there that, while they might not rise to provable criminal offenses, are certainly grounds for at least seriously exploring impeachment. Like, I don't think it's certainly not a vindication. It's certainly not what Trump and his people were trying to paint it as before it was released of, oh, he's completely exonerated. It's kind of the opposite of that. So no, I still say that the main benefit of all of this is for future generations. I don't expect Trump to be impeached because unfortunately, I don't think the Democrats have the guts to do it, and I don't think the Republicans would convict him anyway. I still think they should try, but I don't think they will. And I think the only way we're going to get rid of him is in the next election. And that sucks. That's not the way it should be. He should be impeached. He should be removed. But that's what's going to happen. So the Mueller report and all of these various congressional investigations, they're gathering evidence for history. That's what I think. Thomas Swift Sr. Okay, this is a good one. Why, of all the possible images to have as a trekker, excuse me, Steve, do you have a photo of evil Kirk above your monitor? And Thomas is referring to this. I'll show it to you. I'll pull it down. This is a picture of, yes, this is evil Captain Kirk from The Enemy Within. And this is the immortal moment in the episode when he hears the other Kirk speaking on the ship-wide intercom, and he has a little bit of a freak out, and he smashes his monitor, and he goes, "I'm Captain Kirk! I'm Captain Kirk!" Right? And I have this because I love that scene and I love that episode, and most importantly because this is a postcard, a birthday card, that was a gift from my beautiful wife. She got me this as a present. I think she was on a family vacation, and she came back and she had brought me, among the various souvenirs that she brought me was this wonderful Star Trek birthday card with evil Captain Kirk from The Enemy Within. So I keep it close. I keep it above my my computer monitor, and it is visible in most of my Star Trek videos when I take the shot of me, and I love it. I love my wife, and it's a wonderful gift. So that's why I have it. Joe McClory, do you think it is wrong to use the term pedophile to describe people who sexually assault children when not everyone who has pedophilia abuses children, and not everyone that does has pedophilia? That's a good question. Could we, yeah. I guess we should just use like child sex abuser or child rapist, maybe something like that, instead of saying pedophile. I guess if you want to be super specific, I suppose, yes, a more precise term would be better. It's not. I guess I've never really thought about that. But yeah, if pedophilia is a specific condition, not all people who sexually abuse children are diagnosed pedophiles, and not all pedophiles have actually assaulted children. Yeah, I guess it would be better to, if you're referring to someone who assaults children, to just call them someone who assaults children, I suppose. Okay, Prince, I did not see your super chat question. I am very sorry, and I don't see. I'm not seeing it. Let me scroll way the hell back and see if I can find it. Oh, I saw there's a couple super chats I missed. There's one from Alexander Hagen. Thank you, Alexander. Oh, here you are, K. Prince. Do you think that Rachel Garrett was a good captain? Also, I heard that Trisha O'Neill was on the short list for the role of Janeway on Voyager. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the question. I think I heard that too, that she was briefly considered as Janeway. I don't know how serious that was. I don't know if she was ever like going to get the part or was in the finals for it. But I mean, we only see Captain Garrett for one episode. She seems like she was good. Like she gives the impression of being a good captain. That's certainly how the role was played and how it was written. So I think we can assume she was a good captain. Sure. Yeah. But I guess we don't really know because we only see her that one time. Hey, Casey's here. I didn't see Casey. If anyone wants to ask me any questions, I can take over the stream. Oh God, I didn't take over your stream, Casey. Actually, I didn't. I didn't really do very much of anything on your stream, unfortunately. I was very super flattered to be asked to join, but I didn't have a whole lot to contribute, sadly. I'm scrolling back through questions I missed. Let me see here. Oh, hi, Mrs. Snarky. Hi, Mrs. Snarky. Just so you know, my daughter thinks you look like you could be Mike Shinoda's cousin. I'm blanking on who Mike Shinoda is, so I don't know if that is a compliment or not. Von Beck 32. Steve, do you support and read independently published sci-fi, knowing some is terrible? Asking for a friend, not really. Like I said earlier, I don't read a lot of sci-fi in general, so I unfortunately no, I don't read a lot of independently published sci-fi. Parody error films. Once I solve my upload problem, are you going to be mad at me for my response vid to hating bad art? To be completely brutally honest, and I don't mean this as an insult, but I'm probably not going to watch it because I rarely, if ever, watch response videos, and I have very little time to watch YouTube videos in general. Like I have a small handful of fellow YouTubers who I make sure to make an effort to watch their videos. But usually most of my YouTube related time is spent working on my stuff and I don't have a lot of time to watch videos. So I probably won't be mad at you and I probably won't even watch it, unfortunately. So I'm sorry about that. Carlisle the Cinephile, do I have permission to use some of the names, locations, and possible plot points you had in your Stargazer story in my Star Trek tabletop RPG? Yes, absolutely. Please. Yes, do it. Please, yes, I think that would be wonderful. Oh, Alistair Shaw, you were asking about Michael Worley. Okay, why is Michael the name for Michael Worley? Because originally Michael Worley was conceived as a parody of Michael Voris, who is a real person who is a traditionalist Catholic guy on YouTube. And originally Michael Worley was basically just a direct riff on him. So that's why Michael Worley's name is Michael. And his name is Worley because Michael Voris's show was called The Vortex. So I decided that Michael Worley would be the Whirlpool and he would be Michael Worley. So that's where that came from. But yeah, that's why he's Michael. Kyle McKnight. Steve, what do you think should be done at the border, if anything? Question from Arizona. Let people in. Let people who want to come to this country come to this country. If they're seeking asylum, then grant them asylum if there's no serious pressing reason not to. That's what I think. I think we should, instead of trying to keep people out, I think we should let people in and just keep track of who comes in. I think that's, and if we happen to find someone who is like a really legitimately dangerous person, then that has to be dealt with. But in general, I think we should let people in. Trans Gamer Girl, do you have a view on rationality rules video about trans women in sport? I didn't watch it, so I can't say. I don't know. I don't even know what it's about. Tony Blakeway, hey, what do you think about Carl Benjamin attempting to become an MEP? I think it will probably wind up to be one of the only positive things that piece of human garbage has ever contributed is becoming a candidate for the European Parliament and completely destroying UKIP as a result. That's probably the only good he will ever do for the world, is standing to become a candidate and destroying that horrible party, because even that horrible party is not horrible enough that they're comfortable running that guy as a candidate. That's been my favorite part of this whole thing, is that there are people who are in UKIP who are saying, we're going to leave if this guy stands for election in our party. He's that toxic, he's that bad, that even other right-wing shitheads, other bigoted, xenophobic, just awful people are saying, no, fuck that. We're not running if we're not going to be in the party if he's going to be in the party. I think that is delicious. So that's what I think. I think the whole thing, it's schadenfreude like I've never had in my life. I love it. I guess got a super chat, a very generous super chat from John Jenkins. Thank you, John. Just wanted to say thanks for the great reading of my question and the thoughtful response, even if we are no closer to understanding the mentality that allows right-wingers to ignore political messages. Well, thank you very much. I hope that, I'm glad that was a good answer for you. I'm just baffled by that. Let me see here. Oh, Adam says he would have picked Christie too. Well, there you go. I'm glad we agree. Oh, here's one friend. And again, I just want to. Someone asked, D. Paraplumen, do you like your own sci-fi or your political videos better? The Star Trek videos are more fun, but the Star Trek videos have political stuff in them too. The political videos are not as much fun to make, but when they're done, I sometimes like them a lot. It depends. My favorites are the Stephen Stuffy videos. Those are my favorites of anything that I do by far. But of the two, the sci-fi or the political videos, I think I probably like the Star Trek videos better. Nathaniel Robinson, given we're about a month from the release of the DS9 doc, what issues do you think the writers should address in the Season 8, Episode 1 story they intend to present? Does Cisco really return? I would like to see Cisco return just because he was the lead character of the series. I mean, if we're doing a hypothetical, and there are no limits, and we're assuming that people can come back to their roles, like we're not going to have to, like we'll just pretend Avery Brooks will definitely come back, Yeah, I would love to see Cisco back. Jeffrey Bozer, have you ever noticed that the right's communism causes pity competition meme parallels the persecution competition in their narrative? I haven't noticed that, but now that you mention it, that sounds right. And by the way, I want to acknowledge the super chat that I haven't mentioned since it went up. It's another one from Humbilly. Thank you again, Humbilly. And it says, obviously you don't have any other obsessions in sci-fi because you have yet to watch Dark Matter, but that's okay. You're not perfect. Well, thank you. You are definitely right on all counts. I am definitely not perfect, and I have never watched Dark Matter. So thank you for that. And I just want to say, as I usually have to say, when I scroll through the chat like this and I'm behind and there's a ton of questions, if I miss your question or I don't answer it, it's nothing personal. I'm really sorry. It's not anything like that. It's just the chat goes by really fast and sometimes I don't get all the questions. A Trance, would you consider writing a Trek show with myself? Like we would collaborate? We would collaborate on the show? I don't think I have time. I mean, if time was no object, I would love to collaborate with someone. If we had like a similar point of view and good ideas, I would love to collaborate with someone on writing a Star Trek show, even if it was just like a fanfic type of thing that we knew was never going to go anywhere. But I just don't have time to do it. I'm sorry, I just don't have time to do it. Joe McClory, would you rather Trump be removed and pardoned or finish his term and be charged for his crimes? Damn. That's a hard one, Joe. Since we're over the halfway point anyway, I guess I would say finish his term and be charged for his crimes, because the idea of him getting away with anything just really, really burns me up. But I mean, we should prepare ourselves for that happening anyway. So yeah, I guess I would prefer that he finish his term and be charged. I certainly don't want him to be pardoned. Jabbles fan 1. But what is a juggalo? A juggalo is a fan of the Insane Clown Posse. And just like conservatives who are fans of Star Trek, I don't really get Insane Clown Posse fandom either. But I know a lot of people who are fans of theirs, and a lot of them are actually really cool people. So I don't get it. It's not my thing, but that's what they are. Thanks, Casey. I appreciate you saying that. Okay, Mrs. Snark. Okay, he's the rapper guy from Lincoln Park, Mike Shinoda. It's a comp. Okay, well, thank you for the compliment then. Lexi, you've probably been asked this before, but have you seen Babylon 5? If yes, what do you think of it? If no, I think it's something you might like. Yes, I watched Babylon 5 when it was originally airing, and I haven't gone back and watched any of it since. So all I can remember is just from memory of watching it when it first came out. And I really liked it at the time. Like I said, I never liked it as much as Star Trek, and I never felt as drawn to it as I felt drawn to Star Trek. But I really liked Babylon 5. I liked it a lot. I think if I ever went back and revisited it, it would be really interesting, and I think I would still like it. But yeah, I watched it. I watched it long time ago when it was originally on. A trans, don't you just hate it when you're taking a shower and you accidentally splash shower gel in your eye? I never do that accidentally. I squirt it right in there. You got it. How else do you clean your eyes? Jabbles fan 1, what is your take on the use of sex dolls or adult toys? I think if that's what people need or want to use, that they should use them. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. If you're into that, it's fine. It's never neither sex dolls nor sex toys have ever been my thing at all. I have an incredibly vanilla, boring set of sexual preferences, but if people like them and get something out of it, then more power to them. Here's another one from Nathaniel Robinson. Steve, you said that Star Wars has a clear anti-fascist message. However, the prequels were on shakier ground, giving anti-government messages. Yeah, but these prequels were still... I hate to defend the prequels because I don't like the prequels, but the prequels were still about the rise of a fascist government. I mean, you saw the morphing of the Republic into the Empire, and I think that was depicted as a negative thing. So I still think there was some anti-fascist stuff in there. Here is another super chat from the El Gordo Uno. Fun fact, in the Blu-ray of the episode Data's Day, in the scene where Data places a dish of food on the floor for a spot, you can see it's crawling with bugs. Oh my God. I never noticed that. Oh my God. I'll have to watch that. I don't have the Blu-ray, but I think and thank you for the super chat, by the way. I don't, and here's another one from Harry Pothead. Have a good weekend. My question is in the chat. Do you consider The Cage canon? It never aired as an episode. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. Thank you for the super chat as well. First for El Gordo Uno. I think the Blu-ray versions or the high-def versions are the ones that are on Netflix. So I'll have to watch that and look closely and see if I can tell. I've never noticed that. That is amazing. The cat food is crawling with bugs. Maybe that's how Spot likes it. And as for Harry Pothead, yes, I do consider The Cage canon. It did eventually air. It didn't air at the time, but it did eventually air in its original form, I think in the 80s, and subsequently aired a few more times when they redid the special effects and stuff. So I think The Cage is considered canon by Star Trek officialdom. Like I think CBS/Paramount considers it canon. And I consider it canon too. I think it's definitely canon. A Trance, what's your opinion of the film Interstellar? Believe it or not, I have never seen it. I haven't seen it. I think it's on Netflix or Amazon. I keep thinking maybe I should try to watch it, but I just haven't seen it. I never got to see it in the theater. Bed shaped. What moment or person in your life made you care strongly about issues of social or economic justice? There have been a lot of moments. I don't know if I can pick just one. I remember in terms of like gender relations, I remember there was a moment when, I think I've mentioned this in a video before, I was working at my last real job where I worked maintenance at a truck stop, and one of my female coworkers walked by like on her way back to work from lunch. And there was this truck driver standing next to me, and he looked at her and kind of gave her like, kind of went like, hey, like gave her like a really sort of leering look, like he really was into her. And then he looked at me like as though he was like we were sharing a moment or something. And I felt like really convicted by that. I was like, oh shit, am I that guy? I don't want to be that guy. Like, I don't want to be the guy who like catcalls girls or hoots at them or watches them walk by and goes like, yeah, like I don't want to be that guy. So that was important. I remember I used to. One of my ex-girlfriends had done volunteer work in Haiti and had been around like real crushing poverty and told me about it. And I had never been around that and still haven't been around that. And that left a big impact on me. Just having a personal connection with someone who had been face to face with like real, just abject poverty and seeing the challenges people faced and how they suffered and the help that they needed that they often didn't get. That left an impression on me. My grandmother teaching me just to care about people. Like that might be the most important thing of all. My granny, she always told me, she always put it in my head very, very strongly. Just that it's important to care about people. So I think that left an impression too. It's hard to pick one. Sam is that bread tube? And if yes, what kind of bread do you want to be? What kinds of bread aren't taken? I would prefer maybe a nice pumpernickel, because back before I was a vegetarian, I used to love a good Reuben sandwich, and you can't make a Reuben without like a good pumpernickel or a good rye, maybe. So something like that, Someone asked, I just kind of saw it blow by. Oh, some ethical cage. Is Andrew Yang the next president? No. Joe McClory, what are your feelings on the Masters of the Universe movie? The one that they already made, the canon one, I think it's terrible, but it's a lot of fun. Like, I don't think it's a good movie at all, but I can watch it and have a great time watching it. Like, I think it's a really fun movie. The new one that they're making, I'm cautiously optimistic. I would love to see a good He-Man movie. I don't know if I'll ever get one, but we'll see how it turns out. Okay, Nick on the Planet Ripple. Are sex dolls inherently misogynist? Yeah, maybe you can kind of make that argument. Maybe if it's like an inanimate object in the form of a woman, let's just say, then yeah, you're objectifying a woman literally. That's a problem, sure. Yeah, if you look at it that way, I guess. See, I didn't even consider that. Yeah, I think in that way, I think it is. Yeah, you could say that it certainly doesn't. It certainly doesn't give people positive messages about women. To say here is literally a plastic woman who exists only for you to fuck her. That's not good. Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, I think that's a good point. Let me see. Have you watched The Expanse or Man in the High Castle? No, I have not. All my other shows are on Thursday. Star Trek, The Orville, Gotham, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like any of those other shows? I like The Orville. I haven't watched any Gotham since last year, so I didn't catch the end of last season of Gotham or any of this season of Gotham at all. I just kind of stopped watching it. But up until then, I kind of liked it. I thought we would watch Gotham and kind of just laugh at it, and I thought it was a fun show, sure. I didn't think it was like a really, really good show, but I thought it was fun. Here's a super chat from Roman General 23. Thank you very much for the super chat. It says, you rule, dude. Keep it up. Resist. Wow. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll do my best. Oh, here's a good one from Parody Error Films. Which comics artist is worse, Jack Chick or Rob Liefeld? Oh, man. See, they're both really bad. I think I have to say Jack Chick is worse just because his work is not only poor art, but it's also just morally reprehensible. Liefeld is a really, really bad artist, but most of his work is I don't know. I'm sure if we did a deep dive on Rob Liefeld stuff, we'd find all kinds of super problematic shit. I don't doubt that for a second. But Jack Chick made hate speech. So I think I have to go with Jack Chick as worse, not just because he's a terrible artist, but his art was hate speech. So I got to go with that. Okay, I'm just going to scroll through real quickly because we're getting to the end. I want to end this at 7:30. So, Adam Click, which is a better example of masculinity devoid of toxicity? The Body Improvement Club from Mob Psycho 100 or Terry Crews? Terry Crews is pretty good. I think Terry Crews is a pretty good example of non-toxic masculinity. K. Prince, speaking of sex dolls, Japan has created a machine to extract sperm from men who are embarrassed to masturbate in a hospital setting. It looks like a milking machine. Thoughts? I've seen it. It looks kind of scary. I don't know if I'd want to use it. But if it helps, I guess it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Question 255 AD. Do you think Tom's national service idea would violate the 13th Amendment? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, the military conscription doesn't violate it. And if we structure it like that, you might be able to get away with it. But, it's a good question. Why doesn't the military draft violate the 13th Amendment? I mean, I guess it's been a while since I read the 13th Amendment. Is there a clause in there that specifies it doesn't apply to military service? There might be. I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, it possibly. But I mean, if we don't consider the military to be a violation of it, I doubt that would be. Terry Weaver, by that token, the sex doll thing. Do you think consensual kink is wrong? I suppose if it's consensual, there's nothing wrong with it. Here's another super chat from Roman General 23. New Star Trek sucks. Old is superior. You get it. I completely disagree. I mean, we all have our different opinions about which Star Trek is better. Personally, I think Deep Space Nine is still my favorite. And if that's now part of old Star Trek, then I would say yeah. But I don't think New Star Trek sucks at all. I think the new movies have been really, really good, especially Star Trek Beyond. And I think Discovery has been fantastic this season. I thought it was good in the first season, but I think it has been fantastic this second season. So I don't think it sucks at all. Thank you for the super chat, but I disagree with that completely. One last super chat from Humbilly, and then I got to wrap this up. I apologize. Humbilly with the last super chat says, was Caesar Augustus fascist? Does that mean that ultimately the U.S. will move from a republic to a fascist empire? I support our American overlords. I don't know enough about Caesar Augustus to say whether he was fascist or not. But whatever happened in the past, that doesn't mean that the U.S. will inevitably move from a republic to a fascist empire. It's not inevitable. If we don't want that to happen, we can stop it from happening. So yeah, I would say it doesn't have to be that way. But as for Caesar Augustus, I cannot say for sure. Adam seems to think he was. So I'll go with Adam. Adam is a fairly trustworthy person. If Adam's opinion is that Caesar Augustus was fascist, then I will defer to that for the moment until I can figure out for myself whether he was or not. Okay, I'm going to call an end to the questions there. I thank you so much to all of you for the questions. I'm going to wrap this up and go finish writing my Garrick video if that's all right with you. First, I want to remind everybody, if you like these YouTube things that I do, and especially if you like the Star Trek stuff, you should check out the Lemmy Listen podcasts at lemmylistenpodcast.com. I am a co-host on two of those, the Late Seating podcast, which is the movie review podcast where we take a look at classic films and see if they deserve whatever their reputation is, whether it's good or bad. And also the Ensign's Log, the newest episode of which went up today. And the Ensign's Log is the Star Trek themed comedy podcast. And both Late Seating and Ensign's Log are co-hosted by myself and the wonderful Jason Harding, and you should check him out. If you like my YouTube stuff, give the Ensign's Log and Late Seating a shot at lemmylistenpodcast.com. I also want to remind you that you can support my YouTube work by becoming a patron on Patreon, going to patreon.com/Steve Shives. And one of the perks for being a patron is that you can submit questions for Ask Away ahead of time. And I always start each show by answering all of my Patreon patron questions first before turning to the live chat. So keep that in mind if you like what I do here on YouTube and you want to help out. I also want to draw everybody's attention to, and Humbilly, thanks again for the super chat. He says, politics. There's an Orville episode where a friend of the pilot escaped 20 years POW stint with plans to try to blow up a krill ship. The Union's thinking of sending him back. SJW. That was a good episode. I saw that episode. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Please let me direct your attention to the the information on the video description of this video, because I have links to fundraisers for several of my friends who are unfortunately in a bad situation. Some of them have been there for a while. I still have my co-host Jason Harding's emergency housing fundraiser there, which is still ongoing. If you haven't contributed to that, please consider contributing to that. And just this week, I added another one for Foxy Jazabel, who is a fellow YouTuber that many of you may know and remember. Foxy Jazabel is one of my oldest and most treasured YouTube friends. And I've had her on my channel a couple of times as a guest, and she's just one of the best people in the world. She recently lost her job and has started a GoFundMe to help her get through until she can get another job and get the bills paid and just stay on her feet. And that is linked. That is the top link in the description of this video, Jazzy's financial assistance fundraiser. So please consider checking that out and donating to that if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, that's completely fine. I know times are tough for a lot of us, but maybe please consider sharing it or sharing any of the links in the description if any of them sort of speak to you and you want to help. If you can't afford to donate, share them on your social media and spread the word, because they're really good people. They're pals of mine and they need some help. And it would be nice if we can do something just a little bit to help them out. So that's it, everybody. Thank you all again, once again, for being in the super chat, or for being in the chat. And those of you who gave super chats, I appreciate it. Thanks to all of you for watching and for all of your awesome questions and for giving me another awesome hour and a half to spend with you. I appreciate it. And I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.